The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavioral loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from.
People suffer because they lack metacognition. Metacognition is the ability to zoom out from your current thought process and get another view that looks at the current thought process from above, and then look at this metacognitive thought process and zoom out even further and to look at this metacognitive thought process from above, and then see how far you can reach the top of metacognition. The reason this works is because your ego normally gets entangled in normal day-to-day narratives. You lose yourself in your own thought loops or overthinking loops that often care very much about your own personal immediate feelings that you're trying to avoid. So if you are currently stuck in your own life and you have like a problem that you cannot move ahead from, it's likely because you got stuck in one level of cognition. Thinking about thinking is the ability to take your own thought process and investigate that thought process deeply. And eventually, this is what will completely give you, a full understanding of yourself and the nature of all reality. Usually, people get stuck at some point in this metacognitive process. In spirituality, there often is this realization that you are not your thoughts and that you are consciousness and awareness. And this feels like a huge expansion of metacognition because now you're not stuck anymore in your own mental, small loops. And you see that you as a human being are something way bigger than you initially thought. And that you're part of an interconnected system that is way wider than, your individual life. And then you might think about your own death and how existence keeps going on even despite your own death. And then it feels like that resting in consciousness or awareness or also emptiness in that sense becomes like a big or ultimate spiritual realization. And here you can see how the ego then attaches to a new level of metacognition. Now you're not identified anymore with your human thoughts and instead are identified with consciousness itself. And then you cling to the notion of consciousness being the ground nature of reality. And on this level, there is a ton of valuable stuff that can be discovered for yourself and how you relate to your own emotions and how you relate to life and death and all of the stuff. And it is an expansive way to look at things. And it's so expansive, in fact, that it might completely change your life to look at existence being made out of consciousness and you being identified with that. And it might create such a huge shift in your own life that you think that this is it. And this is like the final level of truth. Until you realize that your entire identity structure now gets entangled also with this layer of identification, which now is just awareness or consciousness. And then you find another layer that is blocked by fear of noticing that consciousness is also not a ground you can stand on. I often say that consciousness is the ground nature of reality, and I do find that communicating non-dual frameworks in this way is often, just the best way because it moves people to the next level of metacognition. But it's not that it is actually the ultimate or final layer of metacognition. The point is that there is no final layer of metacognition. You can always make everything so meta because reality is infinite. There's not one ultimate perspective you can take and then solidify. You will always have the ability to find a new layer of metacognition that kind of nullifies the first one. Once you see that consciousness is also a phenomenon that is conditioned by outside circumstances, at least in the way we humans understand consciousness, in our like very human biased way of understanding consciousness, or like seeing us as the only real conscious agents in this world, and like other animals are kind of inferior versions of it, which is also a view that I think is pretty much outdated, and a lot of people don't think in this way anymore because we have developed our entire metacognition as a species. But then, losing this feeling of identification with consciousness itself brings you into a newer or deeper level of metacognition that often also takes a lot of fear to get towards. Now, this is true not just for these philosophical ponderings about consciousness, but also about how you can relate to your own life and your own life story. If you get very stuck in your ego, then the personal layer keeps chugging at your own mind. It's like you cannot really look at existence for what it is because you're always stuck in your own head. And existence doesn't actually happen in your head. Like, kinda, but not really. Like, if you interact with your own conscious experience, it is not happening anywhere, really. Like, you cannot find a local point and call that point you, because there's not really a you in your own immediate experience. What you can find is the sense of emptiness. And when you ponder on the sense of emptiness, you'll find that it is that emptiness that has the quality of metacognition. It is the ability to perceive anything without getting stuck in that particular thing. You can see that reality always flows through all potential, and it doesn't get stuck in just one small potential. That's why it is said in Buddhist and spiritual traditions that existence is empty, because there's nothing solid that can ever stay the same, because the nature of reality is so meta. There's no way you can contain existence into one singular configuration, but the human ego tries to do exactly that. It tries to solidify the sense of happiness, solidify the sense of joy, love. And practically speaking, this looks like wanting to, pursue your career goals and then hope that these career goals will make you happy forever, or to find a partner for life, and then this partner for life will finally make you feel fulfilled. Whatever you're trying to reach towards while wanting to get stuck at that place basically limits your perspective of reality, and more so, it causes friction within your own bodily system. In the video Spirituality is Thermodynamics, I explain how you can completely boil all of this process down to biological processes in their own body, and that what the body really is trying to do is find a local equilibrium, which basically means that you find a sort of temperature that, seems like a balanced way of processing your own environment. Like if you're getting too hot, your body cools yourself down, and if you're getting too cool, your body heats itself up. The problem is that we can also have kind of like misconfigured, localized minimums. This means that you might think that what you're doing right now is kind of calibrated, but it's only calibrated in the context of your own life. Meaning that if you have calibrated to smoke cigarettes 3 times a day, then this is basically your local equilibrium. And anything that moves yourself outside of this local equilibrium actually causes friction and discomfort. It causes you to have to look at your own habit, like smoking cigarettes, in a meta way, and to realize that you are not actually this habit. This habit is just a local configuration of your current pattern within consciousness, but not some ultimate pattern that defines you. And only through this meta view, you can actually escape these patterns. This meta view is also important for your moral investigation. If you believe that you are a bad person for smoking cigarettes, then you're going to be stuck in this frame of good and bad. And usually when you are stuck in a frame of good and bad, the polarity makes you be stuck. Because if you are a bad person, then you are, identified with the pattern that is evidence for you being bad. And I purposefully chose, a habit as smoking cigarettes because it usually doesn't have the moral loading to it. But for some people, there is genuinely a sense of guilt for smoking cigarettes, as they know they are hurting their own health and they feel like they are bad for doing so. But this idea is so suppressed that it never actually comes to the surface. And metacognition is not just upwards, but also downwards, looking what is at the real edge of your own sense of self and actual solid reality. And the solid reality is the fact that you're stuck in a pattern that, basically makes up what you are currently. This means that your current configuration at the same time is both who you are and not what you really are. You can transcend your current configuration, but you also have to fully acknowledge that you are your current configuration. the ability to have metacognition is the ability to have contradicting viewpoints cohere with each other. This means that you do not get bogged down by contradictions, as they are completely capable to exist in different layers. There's not one truth that rules all truths, but there are more like infinite truths on multiple layers. And if you can swim on all layers, you become completely holistic, which then is the sense of spiritual enlightenment or awakening, which I like to call analytical enlightenment to not cause too much confusion about what this word really means. That's why I like to define enlightenment more as an orientation towards truth, where your cognitive and conscious processes are always oriented towards truth. This way you don't get stuck in any of these metacognitive layers, because each of these metacognitive layers will always look like the ultimate truth, as it is a higher perspective, a higher viewpoint that looks down on the rest and thinks it has figured everything out without understanding that it goes always further up. Although there is also the mind-boggling fact that if you go up enough, you deconstruct the entire existence of metacognition in the first place, and there's only raw immediate presence. I'm going to create a community where we apply analytical enlightenment so you can influence your life through actual spiritual satisfaction, so that your life becomes nice, not from a sense of lack and need to be something, but your personal, genuine satisfaction. You can find my wish list. You can join the wish list on Substack. And if you want direct one-on-one work, you can check out my ego architecture audit, which is in the link in the description. As a final meta layer, I have to say that I've always found meta things extremely interesting, even when I was very young. And I always liked to self-reference things. So if I was in a conversation and then something happened, like some misunderstanding, a word that the other person used that I wanted to dive deeper into, then my form of meta always became talking about language and what the other person means with language. And it often can come off as if I'm trying to argue something or as I'm trying to prove a point, which is not ever the case. It is always to gain deeper understanding of what is actually meant by something, because people talk without knowing what the words they're saying actually mean to them. It's not about some ultimate definition that you have to take out of the dictionary and then pledge your allegiance to. And it's more so that you have your own definitions for your own mental models. And it is useful to understand what these mental models mean to you. And you can figure that out by metacognitively thinking about the words you use and what they mean to you. And as complex as all of this sounds, it is really about making things simpler. It's about making things clearer and defined, instead of just relativizing everything. Relativizing everything is this weird process where you believe that you have found some sort of ultimate understanding of it all by just dismissing truth completely, which is not how it works. There is truth underneath all of these meta layers, but you need to actually investigate it and move straight towards it. And this starts by understanding how we use language. The arrogance of relativistic thinking is the problem that most people have in pursuit of truth, because they basically get stuck in this layer of believing that truth doesn't exist and everything is relative. And this is often the consequence of a huge attainment of metacognitive ability, but then gets stuck in its own obsession over the ability to not have to take a position. But there are truths and there are real positions that you should take, because just saying that everything is empty and there's no real layer behind it all is not the truth. And I uncover why this is the case in this video.